didn't hear the front door open. That's what I keep replaying in my mind, over and over. The sound I should have heard, but didn't. Because Trent and I were laughing too hard. Because the Christmas music was playing too loud. Because we were so focused on wrapping the last piece of ribbon around Tyler's surprise gift that we didn't notice the car pulling into the driveway 4 hours earlier than expected. My hands were covered in tape. Trent had hot chocolate stains on his sweater, this ridiculous reindeer, one he'd bought as a joke. And I just tried to wipe them off with a napkin, which only made it worse. We were sitting, cross-legged, on the bedroom floor, surrounded by a sea of wrapping paper and bows, admiring the custom oak desk we'd spent 5 days building in secret. "He's going to lose his mind when he sees this," Trent said, grinning. His eyes crinkled at the corners, the way they always did when he smiled. The way Tyler's used to. "I hope so," I whispered, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "God, I hope so." The desk sat against the wall, already assembled, already perfect. We'd added the brass lamp he'd mentioned, wanting back in September. The leather desk pad. Even the stupid Newton's cradle he'd joked about in college. Everything he'd ever casually mentioned wanting, but never bought himself because he was always too busy working, too busy traveling, too busy building our future, while I sat alone in this massive house, counting down the days until he came home. But tonight was supposed to change everything. Christmas Eve, our fresh start. I reached for another roll of tape. Trent reached for his mug. Our hands bumped. We both laughed. And that's when the bedroom door swung open. Surprise. "I'm home for Christmas." Tyler stood in the doorway, his face lit up like a child's. His duffel bag hung from one shoulder. His coat was still buttoned. His eyes swept the room, the scattered wrapping paper, the empty hot chocolate mugs, Trent and me sitting too close on the floor, the chocolate stain on Trent's sweater, my hand frozen mid-reach toward his arm. I watched his expression change, joy crumbling into confusion, confusion hardening into something cold and sharp. The duffel bag hit the floor. "How long has this been going on?" His voice wasn't loud. That was the worst part. It was quiet, controlled. The voice he used in court when he was about to destroy someone's case. I couldn't breathe. The air left the room. The Christmas lights blurred. Everything moved in slow motion as Trent scrambled to his feet, his hands raised like he was being arrested. "Tyler, wait." I tried to stand, but my legs were numb from sitting. "This isn't." "Don't." Tyler's eyes were black, empty. "Don't you dare lie to me. We were building you a desk." The words tumbled out desperately. "For Christmas. Look around. It's right there." But he wasn't looking at the desk. He was looking at me, at Trent, at the space between us that suddenly felt like an ocean of guilt we hadn't earned. "Right," Tyler said softly, dangerously. "Sure. That's why you're in my bedroom, at midnight, alone, on Christmas Eve." Trent stepped forward, Tyler's hand shot up. Don't say my name. Don't, his voice cracked. For one terrible second, I saw the hurt beneath the anger, raw and bleeding. I trusted you, both of you. I trusted you. Then he turned, walked away. His footsteps echoed down the hallway. The front door opened, slammed. The engine roared to life, and I stood there in the wreckage of Christmas Eve, surrounded by ribbons and wrapping paper, and the stupid oak desk we'd built for a man who just destroyed us with a single look. The taillights disappeared down the driveway. Trent's voice came from somewhere far away. Cherry, what just happened? I didn't know how to answer. Because 3 months ago, I had the perfect marriage, the perfect life. And now I was standing in my bedroom, accused of betraying the man I loved, while the real betrayal, the one I didn't even know about yet, was driving away into the December night, September 14th. 5 years married. The restaurant was one of those places where the waiters wore white gloves, and the wine list cost more than my monthly car payment. Tyler looked perfect across the candlelit table. He always looked perfect. Sharp jawline, designer suit, the kind of confidence that made heads turn when he walked into a room. I'd fallen for that confidence in grad school, back when we were both broke and ambitious, and stupid enough to believe love was enough. To us, he said, raising his champagne flute. The crystal caught the light, throwing tiny rainbows across the white tablecloth. 5 years down, forever to go. I clinked my glass against his. The sound was delicate, musical, forever, but his phone buzzed before we could drink. Once, twice, 3 times. I'm sorry, he said, glancing at the screen. His jaw tightened. It's Singapore. The Zhang merger is. It's okay. I forced a smile. I'd gotten good at forcing smiles. Take it if you need to. No. He silenced the phone and flipped it face down. Tonight is about us. They can wait. Except they couldn't. The phone buzzed again and again. By the time our appetizers arrived, Tyler had checked it 4 times, each glance lasting a few seconds longer than the last. After this deal closes, he said, cutting into a steak, I'm taking 2 weeks off. Just you and me, maybe the Maldives. You've always wanted to go. Really, something in my chest loosened. Hope, maybe, or desperation. You take 2 whole weeks, I promise. He reached across the table, squeezing my hand. His skin was warm, familiar. I know I've been gone a lot. I know it's been hard. But this is temporary, Cherry. Once I make partner, everything changes. We'll have the life we always dreamed about. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly. So I did. We finished dinner. We went home. We made love, or tried to. But Tyler was distracted, his mind somewhere over the Pacific Ocean, and I pretended not to notice when he rolled over and fell asleep before I finished. I lay awake in the darkness, listening to him breathe, wondering when temporary had turned into 3 years. The house felt different when Tyler traveled. Bigger, colder, like it was built for a family we didn't have yet. I'd wake up at 7, make coffee for 1, work at the kitchen table with my laptop and half-eaten toast. I was a curator at a contemporary art museum in Manhattan, but I worked from home twice a week. Those used to be my favorite days. No commute, no office politics, just me and my research, and the quiet hum of our home. But lately, the quiet felt less like peace and more like loneliness. "You're living like a widow," Rebecca said during our video call one Thursday afternoon. Her face filled my laptop screen, eyebrows raised in that concerned friend way that made me defensive. 3 weeks out of every month, Cherry. That's not a marriage, I don't know what that is. "He's building our future," I said automatically. The words came easy now. I'd said them so many times they'd lost their meaning. Once he makes partner, they'll send him somewhere else. Tokyo, London, Sydney. Rebecca leaned closer to her camera. "When was the last time you two had sex?" My face burned. That's not your business." "That's what I thought," she softened. "I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm worried about you. You're 32 years old, and you're sitting alone in a 4-bedroom house every night, eating takeout and binge-watching Netflix. That's not living. I have my work, my independence. Your independence isn't keeping you warm at night." I ended the call shortly after that. Told myself Rebecca didn't understand. She'd never been married, never loved someone enough to sacrifice, to wait, to believe that the hard times were just the price of future happiness. But that night, lying alone in our king-sized bed, I tried to remember the last time Tyler and I had been intimate. Really intimate. Not the quick, distracted sex we'd had on our anniversary, but the kind where we talked afterward, where he held me and asked about my day and made me feel seen. July, maybe August. I couldn't remember, and that scared me more than I wanted to admit. The doorbell rang on a Saturday morning in late September. I wasn't expecting anyone. Tyler was in Singapore for another 2 weeks. I was still in my pajamas, coffee mug in hand, hair piled on top of my head in a messy bun. Trent stood on my porch with 2 suitcases and a sheepish grin. "Surprise," he said. I blinked. "Trent, what are you?" Long story. He shifted his weight. Short version, Portland didn't work out. The girlfriend didn't work out. My sublet fell through. And Tyler said I could crash here for a few weeks while I figure things out. He pulled out his phone, showing me a text from his brother. "See, he said you'd be cool with it." I stared at the text. "He's family. Help him out." Sent 3 days ago. Tyler hadn't mentioned it to me. "Of course," I heard myself say. "Come in." Trent was the younger brother, 29 to Tyler's 35. Where Tyler was all sharp angles and corporate polish, Trent was soft edges and creative chaos. He wore flannel shirts and ripped jeans. He designed logos and websites for small businesses, barely making rent, perfectly content to live a life that made their mother Judith cluck her tongue in disappointment. I'd always liked him. At family dinners, He was the one who asked me about my work, who actually listened when I talked about the new gallery exhibit or the artist I was researching. Tyler's family mostly ignored me. I wasn't rich enough, connected enough, impressive enough. But Trent treated me like a person, not an accessory. Guest rooms upstairs, I said, leading him inside. Second door on the left. Thanks, Cherry. He lugged his suitcases up the stairs. I promise I'll be out of your hair soon. Just need to land a few clients, save up for a deposit. But he didn't leave after a few weeks. And I didn't want him to, because suddenly, the house didn't feel so empty anymore. It started small. Coffee in the morning before I left for work. Trent would stumble into the kitchen, hair sticking up in every direction, and pour himself a mug while I checked my emails. Sleep okay, I'd ask. Better than that air mattress in Portland, he'd say, grinning. Your guest bed is like sleeping on a cloud. Then it became routine. Coffee at 7. Quick conversation about our days. He'd tell me about the logo he was designing for a craft brewery. I'd tell him about the installation we were planning for November. Normal, surface-level stuff. But somewhere around mid-October, it deepened. We started having movie nights on Thursdays. I'd pick up Thai food on my way home from the city. Trent would have the living room set up, blankets on the couch, something old and black and white queued up on the TV. He had good taste, not the Marvel movies Tyler always wanted to watch, but real films. Casablanca, The Third Man, Roman Holiday. You know what I love about these old movies? Trent said one night, halfway through Notorious. The chemistry. You can feel it. They didn't need sex scenes or explosions, just two people looking at each other, and you knew. I glanced at him. He was focused on the screen, the TV light flickering across his face. Yeah, I said quietly. You knew. Rebecca would have read too much into those Thursday nights, but I didn't. I told myself Trent was family, that this was innocent, that I was just lonely and he was just kind, and there was nothing wrong with enjoying someone's company, except I started noticing things, like how I'd pick out my outfit more carefully on mornings when I knew he'd be home, how I'd reapply my lipstick before leaving work, even though I was just coming back to an empty house, how my heart would lift when I pulled into the driveway and saw the lights on, knowing he was inside. I pushed those thoughts away, buried them, told myself I was being ridiculous, but the thoughts kept coming back. Tyler came home in mid-October for 48 hours. A layover between Singapore and London, he called it. Just enough time to shower, repack, and sleep. He looked exhausted, thinner than I remembered, shadows under his eyes that hadn't been there before. You okay? I asked, watching him drop his suitcase in the bedroom. Fine, just tired. He loosened his tie. The Zhang merger is killing me. 16-hour days. The time difference. I can't remember the last time I slept more than 4 hours. I moved toward him, wrapping my arms around his waist from behind. He smelled like airplane and expensive cologne. I pressed my face against his back. I've missed you, I whispered. Missed you too. But his voice was flat, automatic. That night, I tried to initiate intimacy. Wore the silk nightgown he'd bought me for Christmas 2 years ago. Dimmed the lights. Touched his shoulder when we climbed into bed. I'm really tired, Cherry. He didn't even turn toward me. Can we? Not tonight. Of course, I said to his back. Of course. He was asleep in minutes, snoring softly. And I lay there staring at the ceiling, feeling a distance between us that had nothing to do with miles. The next morning, I woke to an empty bed. Tyler was already in the shower. I padded downstairs to make coffee and found his phone on the kitchen counter. It buzzed. I shouldn't have looked. I know that. But my hand moved before my brain could stop it. The preview lit up the screen. Can't wait to see you in Tokyo. Last night was the message cut off. But I saw the sender name clear as day. V. Chen. My stomach dropped. My hands went cold. Who was V. Chen? I set the phone down carefully, exactly where I'd found it. My heart hammered against my ribs. My mind raced through possibilities. A colleague, a client, a perfectly innocent explanation that I was blowing out of proportion because I was lonely and paranoid. And, morning, I jumped. Tyler stood in the doorway, hair wet, already dressed in a fresh suit. Morning, I managed. My voice sounded normal. How did my voice sound normal? He grabbed his phone, glanced at the screen, and his expression didn't change. No guilt, no panic, just tired indifference. I've got to head out, he said, kissing my forehead. Flight leaves in 3 hours. Okay, I'll call you when I land. Okay. And then he was gone, again. The door closing behind him, the car pulling away. I stood alone in the kitchen, coffee cooling in my mug, staring at the empty space where my husband had been. Last night was what? What happened last night? The questions spiraled through my mind. V. Chen, Tokyo, last night. But I couldn't ask, couldn't confront, because what if I was wrong? What if it was nothing? What if I destroyed my marriage over paranoia? So I buried it, pushed it down deep where all my other doubts lived, told myself I was being ridiculous, that Tyler loved me, that 5 years of marriage meant something. But the doubt had roots now, and it was growing. I tried to focus on work. Spent the day researching a new exhibit, corresponding with galleries, pretending my world wasn't quietly falling apart. But every few minutes, my mind would drift back to that text. Can't wait to see you in Tokyo. Who talks to a colleague like that? By evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I Googled V. Chen Tyler's firm and found nothing. Checked LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Nothing. Either V. Chen didn't exist in any public way, or they were very good at staying hidden. Or I was looking at someone Tyler was hiding. That night, I almost called Rebecca. Almost confessed everything, the loneliness, the distance, the suspicious text. But I stopped myself, because saying it out loud would make it real, would force me to confront possibilities I wasn't ready to face. So instead, I sat alone in my big, empty house, eating leftover Thai food from the night before, and wondered when I'd become the kind of wife who went through her husband's phone, when I'd become the kind of wife who needed to. Judith arrived for Sunday brunch unannounced. That was her style, showing up whenever she felt like it, expecting me to drop everything and play the perfect daughter-in-law. Cherry, darling. She swept into the house wearing a cream cashmere coat and disapproval. Is that coffee? I'll take mine black. I poured her a mug, biting my tongue. Trent was still asleep upstairs. I'd hoped to avoid Judith seeing him here, but of course, she noticed the extra car in the driveway immediately. Is that Trent's vehicle? She asked, settling at the kitchen table like she owned the place. He's staying with us for a bit. Her perfectly plucked eyebrows rose. For a bit. It's been over a month, hasn't it? He's figuring some things out. She sipped her coffee, eyes sharp. And Tyler's comfortable with this arrangement. His wife and his brother playing house while he's working himself to death overseas. My jaw tightened. We're not playing house. He's family. He needed a place to stay. Of course, but her tone said otherwise. I just worry, about appearances, about propriety. There's nothing improper about. I'm sure there isn't. She patted my hand like I was a child. I spoke to Tyler last week. He sounded so happy. Said the Tokyo office is like a second home now. Can you imagine our boy making such an impression internationally? Tokyo office. V-Chen. Last night was the pieces started connecting in ways I didn't want to acknowledge. Did he mention when he's coming home? I asked carefully. Oh, not for another month at least. Maybe longer. The firm is grooming him for something big. Partner track by next spring, if all goes well, she smiled. You must be so proud. Proud. Yes. That's what I should feel. Not suspicious. Not jealous. Not like my husband was building an entire life on the other side of the world without me. Trent appeared in the doorway, rumpled and yawning. Morning. Oh, hey, Mom. Judith's smile went razor thin. Trent. Still here, I see. Yep. He poured himself coffee, oblivious to the tension. Cherry's been great, really generous. I'm sure she has. The way she said it made my skin crawl. After Judith left, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. Trent joined me, sliding into the chair across from mine. You okay? He asked. She can be a lot. Yeah, I forced a smile. I'm fine. But I wasn't fine, because Judith's words kept echoing in my head. Playing house. The Tokyo office is like a second home. Propriety. Was everyone seeing something I was refusing to acknowledge? About me and Trent. About Tyler and whoever V-Chen was. Cherry. Trent's voice pulled me back. Seriously, what's going on? I looked at him. Really looked at him. His concerned eyes. His gentle expression. The way he always seemed to know when something was wrong. Do you think? I started, then stopped. Never mind. Do I think what? I shook my head. It's stupid. Try me. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. Do you think Tyler's having an affair? Trent's face went carefully neutral. Why would you ask that? I saw a text on his phone from someone named V-Chen. It said, "Can't wait to see you in Tokyo. Last night was," and then it cut off. Did you ask him about it? No, he was leaving for the airport, and I didn't know how. Trent was quiet for a long moment. Do you want my honest answer? Yes. I don't know if he's having an affair, but I know he's been gone more than he's been here for the past year. I know you're lonely. I know you deserve better than waiting around for someone who barely calls. He's busy. Everyone's busy, Cherry. But people make time for what matters. And if you matter to Tyler, he'd find a way to be here more. The truth of it hit me like a punch. Because Trent was right. If I mattered, if our marriage mattered, Tyler would fight for it. Would choose me over the Tokyo office and the Singapore deals, and whatever the hell he was doing with V-Chen. But he wasn't fighting. He was running, and I was just waiting. I should get back to work, I said, standing abruptly. Thanks for listening. Anytime. But that night, lying in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about the text. About Tokyo, about whether I even wanted to know the truth. Come on, Trent said one Saturday morning in early November. You've been cooped up in this house all week. Let's get out. I have work to do. Your work can wait. The sun is shining. The leaves are peak foliage. And there's a pumpkin farm 30 minutes away that apparently has the best cider donuts in Connecticut. He grinned. I'm not taking no for an answer. So I went. We drove with the windows down, cold autumn air whipping through the car. Trent played old folk music, Simon and Garfunkel, Joni Mitchell, stuff my parents used to listen to. We didn't talk much, just existed in the same space, comfortable and easy. The farm was picture perfect. Rolling hills covered in orange pumpkins. Apple trees heavy with fruit. Kids running through corn mazes while their parents sipped hot cider. 2 pumpkins, Trent told the teenager at the entrance. And whatever tools we need to destroy them artistically. We spent 2 hours carving. Trent made an elaborate design, some kind of geometric pattern that looked like it belonged in a gallery. I attempted a traditional jack-o'-lantern and failed spectacularly. Here, he moved beside me, guiding my hands with his. Angle the knife like this. Small cuts. Don't force it. His hands were warm over mine. Steady. I could smell his cologne, something woodsy and understated, nothing like Tyler's expensive designer scent. There, he said softly. See, I looked down. The pumpkin's face was taking shape, crooked but charming. Thanks, I whispered. We sat on hay bales afterward, drinking cider, watching the sun sink toward the horizon. The sky turned orange and pink and purple. Beautiful in a way that made my chest ache. Can I ask you something? Trent said after a long silence. Sure. Are you happy? The question hit me like cold water. What? With Tyler? With your life? Are you happy? I should have lied. Should have given him the automatic response I gave everyone else. Of course, I'm happy. I have everything I ever wanted. But sitting there, surrounded by falling leaves and fading light, I couldn't do it. I don't know, I admitted. I used to be, or I thought I was, but lately, I trailed off. You deserve someone who sees you, Trent said quietly. Really sees you. Not someone who treats you like a piece of furniture that'll still be here when he gets back from his next trip. I turned to look at him. His eyes were serious, intent. Something unspoken hung between us, heavy and dangerous. Trent, I know. He looked away. I know, I shouldn't have said that. You're married to my brother. This is I'm sorry, but the words were out there now, floating in the cold November air, and we both felt them. The drive home was silent, not comfortable anymore, but charged, electric, like we were both holding our breath, waiting for something to break. When we pulled into the driveway, I didn't move to get out. Cherry, he started. I should get inside, I interrupted. Tyler might call, but my heart was racing. My hands were shaking, because I'd almost done something, almost crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. And the worst part of me wanted to. I thought about Trent's hands over mine, the way he looked at me, the way he listened when I talked, like my words actually mattered, the way he made me laugh, made me feel seen. Everything Tyler used to do, everything Tyler had stopped doing. I picked up my phone, typed out a message to Tyler. I miss you. When are you coming home? Stared at it for 5 minutes, deleted it, because what was the point? He'd give me the same answer he always did. Soon. After this deal. After that meeting. After everything else became more important than us. So instead, I climbed into bed, pulled the covers up, and tried not to think about the man downstairs, who wasn't my husband, but felt more like home than the one I'd married. Tyler came home on a Tuesday in mid-November. Not a business trip with a 2-day layover. Actually home, with flowers and champagne and an apology that sounded rehearsed but genuine. I've been a terrible husband, he said, standing in our living room with a bouquet of roses. I know that. I've been so focused on making partner, on building our future, that I forgot about our present. I stared at him, at the flowers, at the champagne he'd set on the coffee table. Tyler let me finish. He moved closer, taking my hands. I'm here for 10 days. No work, no emails, just us. And I booked us a weekend at that B&B in Vermont. The one you showed me last year. The one with the fireplaces and the hiking trails. My heart stuttered. Really, really? He pulled me into his arms. I'm sorry, Cherry. I'm so sorry. I've been taking you for granted. But that stops now. I wanted to ask about Vichen, about Tokyo, about all the nights I'd spent alone wondering if he still loved me. But I didn't, because in that moment, with his arms around me and his promises in my ear, I wanted to believe him more than I wanted the truth. I love you, he whispered into my hair. I love you too. And I meant it, despite everything, despite the distance and the loneliness and the suspicious text. I loved this man. I'd built a life with him. I'd made vows. Maybe this was the turning point. Maybe this was when everything got better. Trent came downstairs, stopping short when he saw us. "Oh, sorry. I didn't know." "It's fine," Tyler said, releasing me. He extended his hand to his brother. "Hey, man. Thanks for keeping Cherry company while I've been gone." They shook hands. Something passed between them, some unspoken understanding, or warning, or acknowledgement. I couldn't read it. "No problem," Trent said carefully. "Cherry's been great." Tyler's arm tightened around my waist. "She is pretty great, isn't she?" It should have felt romantic, possessive in a good way. Instead, it felt like a claim, like Tyler was marking his territory after being gone too long. "No problem," Trent said carefully. "Cherry's been great." Tyler's arm tightened around my waist. "She is pretty great, isn't she?" It should have felt romantic, possessive in a good way. Instead, it felt like a claim, like Tyler was marking his territory after being gone too long. "I love you," he said against my lips. "I love you too." And I meant it, despite everything, despite the distance and the loneliness and the suspicious text from V. Chen. I loved this man. I'd built a life with him. I'd made vows. That night, we had dinner by candlelight. Tyler ordered wine, told stories about his childhood, asked about my work. He wanted to hear about the new exhibit, about my research, about everything I'd been doing while he was gone. "You're brilliant," he said, refilling my glass. "Sometimes I forget how brilliant you are, how lucky I am." Back in our room, we made love. Not the distracted, half-hearted sex we'd had on our anniversary, but real intimacy. Slow and connected, and everything I'd been missing. Afterward, lying tangled in the quilts, Tyler said something that made my chest tight with hope. "The firm wants me to relocate to Singapore. For a year." My stomach dropped. "What?" But I said no. He propped himself up on one elbow, looking down at me. "You're more important, Cherry. Our marriage is more important. I'm not doing this anymore, choosing work over you." Tears stung my eyes. "You mean it." "I mean it." He kissed my forehead. "When we get home, I'm going to tell them I need to scale back. Work remotely more. Be home at least 3 weeks out of 4. No more of this 1 week a month nonsense." I believed him. God help me. I believed every word because I wanted to believe. Because the alternative, that my marriage was already over, that he was lying, that V. Chen meant something, was too painful to accept. So I chose hope.